pops up a wizard?
AV SuperFriends on Topic is an independent production wholly owned and operated by AV SuperFriends, LLC. For the highest quality recording of all of our shows, visit avsuperfriends.com. This is AV SuperFriends on Topic, a 30-minute monthly roundtable focused on a single topic. This discussion will be opinionated, to the point, and saturated with our well-known blend of painfully won expertise and deeply ingrained immaturity.
For May 2024, it's the best-sounding podcast in higher ed. This is the AV SuperFriends on Topic. It's a house of cards here, people. Give me a second.
It's fascinating. It's entertaining, if nothing else.
To try to make this happen. Let's see, broadcasting live to tape. No, I take that back. Let me redo that again. We're broadcasting live. We're really live. It says live right there. I can see it. It says live. Broadcasting live from coast to coast, easternmost to westernmost, northernmost to southernmost, gate post to hitching post. I'm your local host who can boast the most milquetoast and utmost humility. I'm Chris Dexter. It's time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure. And let's say hello to today's panel of AV SuperFriends. This button. There we are. Look at that. We're joined by a lead impact synergist from Corvallis, Oregon, Mark Kolowazinski.
It's going to be impactful.
Well, make sure you synergize the impact.
Well, I got to align it and get it tweaked first, but yes.
Next up is an interactive infrastructure strategist. Good Lord. From Greensboro, North Carolina, Larry Darling.
Yeah, interactive infrastructure. I'm not sure I'm down with that.
It's buzzwords, sir. It's your job. You tell me what it is. And finally, we're joined by our Chief Metrics Officer from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Justin Rexing.
CMO. It sounds important. I don't know. Is it more important than a vice president?
The correct answer was quarter inch. I'm not sure where you went there.
Which metric? We like millimeter here. That's what we're talking about. This month's topic for May, it being April, so this is the May show. The topic is commencement, which was clearly selected by somebody who spends their time thinking only about events, and I don't care about that. So instead, we're going to talk about
this is an event right here, man.
Yeah,
this whole
is an
thing.
event.
Yeah.
We run events for a business.
We're going to talk about how we want
do.
to how we commence students into the next phase of their career, or
I was wondering how you were going to define this. I'm
just trying to sneak in the word gradumacating as many times as I can.
Yes.
So the 3 bullet points, which is as far as we got on this, 3 bullet points are in discussing graduating staff to the next level.
Hit the timer. Just go. Let's just get into it.
All right, fine. I'll just start the timer. We'll start the timer, and I was going to give a little intro there, but instead we just get this.
We're just going to jump into it. Yeah.
All right, there you go. You got 22 minutes. Figure it out. There we are. So, graduating staff, graduating students, graduating whatever to the next level of their career. How do we set them up for success? How do we grow our students to become potentially full-time workers eventually? And then, Larry, I like the way you phrased it was, how do we get people to the point where once they leave, we would hire them back? All this and more in the next 21 minutes.
Get ready. That's why I made you hit this, because this is clearly a riveting topic.
Well, and this is primarily, it's my fault. I was the one that pushed us in this direction, so I will take 100% blame on this.
It's not your fault. You're trying to save us from this month's topic of weirdness.
But it's something that we actually just did. Like, I hired a new student supervisor for my team, and one of the goals was, before we had a very flat student progression. Like you were hired in as a student worker and you stayed a student worker at that same level. And so now we have a 4-tier system where we are
more tiers.
More
tiers.
4 tiers?
Where we are progressing students through, and the goal is, like, when they become the functional student lead at the end of their journey, it's a very small step to becoming a full-time employee at that point. Like, the roles are very blurred.
So how
do you find them being actually like better than, like, above quality than, like, maybe some of the other staff?
We've just implemented that here, so we're still, like, developing
It's
that.
a work in
but
progress.
other places I've been, I was at Butler for a while, as I've said over and over again. With that student program, I had some of the best student workers I've ever seen, and some of those went on for internships at Prism, other places, and they could code, they could install, they could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So how
Did you
do
say they had an
evaluate-
internship at a prison?
Prism.
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 It's a different type of internship.
It's gonna- What program? are you running?
Prison AV, it's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's out there. So
So how do you evaluate these students? You just put them in a box. It's like cage match style, or is there like a process that you go through?
Let me just
to
say I got one
evaluate
open
which
position.
one's Gonna
I'll be back
create,
in 5 minutes.
Yeah, like
Figure it
throw
out.
one stick on the floor and it's like whoever's remaining gets the job. Like how does this work for you?
No, nothing like that. Like
No?
we actually have like there's
It all
trainings they
collapsed,
have to
yeah.
complete.
Yeah.
There's time that they have to be in the position, but it's not just like checking the box off for time. It's while they're in that role for this amount of time, they have to show that they are doing these things.
okay.
And once they get that responsibility, then they get a little bit more on the next step.
So I'm curious of the walks that we see come in from students, because I've seen with our student positions all over the place, like some experience, no experience. What do you look for when you're like bringing somebody in? Like top 3 things that you want to see that like you're going to bring a student in. We all look for that mythical student. Oh, you have experience in all these things, but we know that's not what you're going to find. Like what are like the things you're really looking for?
I've had success with so many different backgrounds. Like customer service is huge because that's where they all start. They all start answering the phone, supporting faculty, supporting students in the classrooms. And so that's the first thing. Like if they have customer service experience, restaurants
To build
is
on
a
that.
great place to go. I can use that and make that work. Beyond that, the theater majors, like if I can get a technical director, they're used to making sure the show goes on, and I've had really good experience with those students as well. And then obviously like your electrical engineers, your computer science, that group of students, you can really, if you can get them to engage and see AV as IT and this is a way of really building their experience, you can get some really good work out of them.
I say, yeah, we see a lot of the electrical engineering students and computer sciences and all that here. And I will say, I don't know if they're distinguishing between IT and AV. I think it's just technology. Like they don't really see that whole barrier or like merger or / whatever that is. And when I'm looking kind of at students, I find ones that are just super inquisitive and want to know more about all things technology. And like, I wish I had like a more of a tiered approach, but in my part of the organization, the technical services piece, I'm just kind of getting into this, having more students. The classroom side, I think they have that support desk piece very well regimented, and Lawrence has done a really good job kind of putting that together with Don. And it does start very similar to how you had it. You're using the phone tree, and you're doing that customer service part. But I found myself in more the engineering side now, looking to find experiences and opportunities for students on that side. And that's been fascinating for me because I've been having a lot of luck just finding students who want to just jump in and go after like problems and solve things. And it's been awesome because they're showing that initiative and like that bias for action. Like I have a little bit of a hands-off approach. So like I bring them in, find out like you're interested in doing some engineering work, you have electrical background or not, maybe you have some production experience. But I've had a core this past year that have had really good background in events and have jumped into our broadcast infrastructure and have just jumped in like head first, everything from like fiber pathways into, multiplexing, figuring out Dante and building Dante networks on the fly and going, where like these students are above and beyond what I've seen out of some full-timers over years. And like, so it's been awesome to see this next wave of students who are not afraid of technology at all. And they will just go full tilt all the way in. And so I've been having fun with that, kind of identifying where and how to build those skills on the engineering side. And they'll jump in and do installs too. Like it's it's weird. Like we're in a new realm of students just wanting to do all of it, which is great.
And I think what you said about just letting them jump in is huge. Like when I first realized the capability of the students I was working with and what they could accomplish was when I was using them strictly for installs and that kind of thing, and we were ahead of schedule, and they were starting to ask questions about programming, and so I said, sure, like, let's make a game out of it. And so I taught them a little bit of Crestron, gave them the tools and say, we've got a day to kill on our schedule here. Try to make this work. Mm-hmm. And then, like, let them work in groups, let them do whatever they wanted to do to solve the problem. And from then on out, like, I couldn't keep them challenged enough. Like, they were constantly just running through it.
You create that culture, right? And I think there's a lot of organizations that look at students as a risk. For some reason, I see it a lot and talk to people. They're like, "Oh, we can't have students do that. They're going to be exposed to this and that. They're going to get in malicious
things."
Yeah, there's always this concept of like fear that they're going to come in, they're going to get access behind the scenes of our servers and blah blah, and everything's going to go sideways, right? And I try to take the complete opposite. Like we went through interview process. We've had conversations. I want to default to trusting them. They are here to gain experience. As part of that, trust is going to be a part of that experience. So I try to not have the student experience start from like can't and no, you're not going to have access to like, let me test my own beliefs. What am I okay giving the keys over to? Because at the end of the day, I want to give them as much real world experience as I possibly can.
Instead of giving the keys of your main car to these kids, just give them a rental, right?
I give them your keys.
Test systems over here to play with and break, and they can learn. Because I've broke a lot of stuff, growing up in the AV industry, and you learn from that. We all have, and that's part of it. And so, as a manager, you should foster that, and then when they do break it, have a debriefing and let them learn from it. So when
Then
you
yell
do
at
send
them.
them
Oh, yeah.
out,
Well,
in the
have you had
real
them break
world-
anything? Like by show of hands, I mean, have your students like honest? And I'm not talking
talking
about dropping
physically
stuff
or-
off, like dumping stuff off a cart being delivered. That's
Yeah.
I do that stuff. Like I break enough stuff that way myself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to qualify that.
I've
Have your
broken
systems
more
ever
displays
gotten
than
into
anybody on
something
my team,
and like
so, yeah.
damaged a system from internal, like programmatically or configuration wise?
Not really.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
part of that
every
reason is
time it was-
because they don't have the keys for that
Well-
in certain situations too. So it's a balance, right?
I've had students go in to try to fix an audio issue in DSP and end up causing more problems. But that's a learning opportunity.
learning opportunity,
And
exactly.
we reloaded the previous and walked through why that,
But
that
that's
didn't
not
work, et cetera,
broken. That's just
No,
misconfigured, right?
Correct.
And that's like, oh my God, you got in here and broke this thing. No.
I
but
had
there
students
is.
at one point at Butler. They were trying to go above and beyond, which I was thrilled with. The old Extron panels had a reset button that was hidden.
You can't kill those. Those
Inside
are
the
the
speaker
roaches of
Yeah,
AV. You will
that's in the
never
speaker
kill
grill.
those things.
That when you press it, it doesn't kill it, but it wipes the code completely. And so, like, they called me at like 5 o'clock on a Thursday, like, "Hey, can you come back to campus? We just completely wiped this." And I was like, "No, but I can go home and load it from there." So
I will show you where the files are, and
See,
here's how
there's-
you get them on there.
Let you
Go
figure
ahead.
it out.
There's learning mistakes, which is what we're talking about. Then there's lazy mistakes, and as managers, you should be able to parse between the two.
What's a lazy mistake?
Like a lazy mistake is one example is doing the same mistake over and over and over again because you're too lazy to listen, right? You're not lazy enough to pick up your procedures of your department. You're not lazy enough to do what everybody else is doing, so you just go off and do your own thing, not really thinking things through. Another example of laziness is, let's see, shortcuts, right? Like doing like if
No
you're-
keyboard
if you're-
shortcuts. Nobody's allowed to.
No,
Type
no
out those
keyboard.
commands.
Like if your students are wiring up racks, are they doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, or are they taking shortcuts, right? And how do you make them learn from that?
I thought
And-
you were going to
and
say
that's-
lazy, like a lazy mistake today I saw. We were clearing out a storage room. One of the ones you guys have all seen on the live Christmas
The
special.
dungeon episode.
Not the dungeon. Haven't been there
Oh,
yet.
okay.
We gotta work toward. We gotta build up to that. You have to be experienced to get in the dungeon there. So this student had this grand idea of we were moving some old equipment racks out, and they had casters. And he's like, "What if I put several of these on a big hand truck? I can move all of them at once." Well, that's just fine until you realize it won't turn that corner because these racks are almost 8 feet tall. And so it took him 4 times as long to load these all onto a cart, realize they're not going to fit, unload them, and then move them one by one down the hall, sort of thing. It's like, yeah, well, hey,
Sounds
but
like
now
a
we
learning
know.
experience.
Learning
Yeah,
experience.
right.
The funny thing was, to our earlier conversation about their background, this particular student is a electrical engineering major, I believe. Maybe CE. I don't know. One of the two. And his concern on it, this large rack that is now laterally not going to make a turn on a narrow hallway, instead of the primary method of like, let's just see if it'll fit. No, it won't. He got out a tape measure and started doing the math to see what the angle he would need and how much radius he would need to make that bend. I'm like, you freaking nerd. It's still not going to fit. I don't care how much math you're
I
going
would
to
have
do.
saw that.
But if we
I
just
would've
move
looked at
this
that and
wall,
said-
Chris, we just got to move the wall, and then we're fine.
I would have looked at
I
that
had a
student
big
and
enough
said,
lever.
let me know how that goes after you're done. I'm going over back to my office. Yeah. Have fun.
So,
Good luck learning.
also, and Mark, I think, I can't remember if it was Mark or Larry who said it. One of the two said it. It wasn't Justin, but it wasn't me. When you're hiring students, that you interview the students, which I think is a critical part that a lot of people miss. They will simply say, we need 5 or 7 warm bodies to fill these spots, and hire the first ones who come through the door who aren't actively, completely falling apart or whatever, or sometimes even that. But I think the process of writing up an actual no-foolin' position description, a job description for these, and treat them as you're only going to be here 12 hours a week, but we're going to write this up and treat it as if it's a real position. We're going to interview you, which for some of these students, honestly, is the first time they have ever had a semi-professional, let's sit down and answer questions in an interview. And this is a great learning experience for them. And through that, you determine what sort of person they are, what their background is, and whatnot. And I've been asking the same 10 or 12 questions for years at multiple institutions, and they're very high level. And there's a couple in there that are kind of designed to kind of trick them. But I'm really just watching their thought process, how they think, how they respond. I honestly don't care about the specifics of what they're telling me. It's more of how do they work in this sort of environment. What sort of processes do they go through as they think about these things? Because some of the best student workers I've had are music education majors or communication studies or something, but they have the right attitude, they've got excellent skill set, and they're, Mark, I think you said it, they're interested to learn, they want to learn, they're interested like, oh, let me figure out how this stuff works. I've never seen an equipment rack before, but now you've shown me how this, I can start building this out. And that to them is fun, because otherwise they're over there working in the commissary, shoveling out mashed potatoes or checking people into the computer labs or something. But, this is a real world, no fooling job for them.
And part of that interview process, too, is you want to find out what they're interested in. Because once I know that, they're passionate in running audio at their church or whatever, I can start tailoring some of the job around their strengths. And that way, it's mutually beneficial at that point.
One of the pieces I do for all of our students during some point during their first year, I'll ask him out just point blank. I'm like, one of your goals over the next couple of months is I want you to come up with one topic or thing that you want to know more about. It does not need to be AV related. It doesn't need to be media related. Whatever it is, one topic or thing, and then I use it as an exercise so that they learn how connected our IT department is to every other department on this campus. Somebody, and we will find out who on campus you can sit down and have a conversation to learn more about whatever that one thing is. We will find you that person, and we will set it up. And it becomes a follow-up when they make it a point to reach out, to learn how to communicate. They learn the importance our organization is with all of them, and then they actually follow up, and then they go meet with that individual and have a conversation. It can be whatever it needs to be about, but it also just gets them out of their comfort zone and then to go outside the organization and actually to follow up on other interests and things like that. It can be related to school. It can be totally whatever it is, but it shows how far-reaching our IT department goes and the ability, if they want to seek and find out an answer, be inquisitive and go find the answer.
Do you help them make those connections as far as finding the right resource? What are some of the, are there any real out there ones or what?
We've had people that just want to know more about oceanic things. It's like,
Oceanic things.
No, we have a whole department.
Shrimp?
Right. No,
Fish.
like research.
Delicious
research,
shrimp.
Yeah.
So, and we've had people reach out to, I'll find the director or whoever it is over there in the IT department and say, hey, why don't you go talk to, Chris and go talk to, he'll talk about the oceanic research and just go have a conversation. Or if it's somebody over and I'm really into music or whatever it is, we'll we'll have a conversation with the College of Liberal Arts and go talk to Pete over there.
Ocean
So,
music?
Yeah, whatever it may be. But I purposely try to get them to not come up with an AV or media-related conversation. I really kind of nudge them to think outside the box. If it's something that's even in their major or adjacent to their major, to think about that and really push the bounds. And then also I will kind of give them the directory and say, hey, who do we think we want to talk to in here? And I will coordinate that conversation as need be.
You ever lead them to the wrong person and just see what happens?
Yeah, all the time. They
That's
came
the
here.
Wrong path completely.
What's that dude about music?
Yeah,
Tell me.
but it's just to keep them kind of going and just to understand the reach that we have. I think it's just important to create as much opportunity as you possibly can for them.
Well, and that sort of thing definitely does build skills, and it sets them up for future success. And it's an opportunity to get them ready for a professional environment, or where responses aren't going to come through text message. Well, I guess it's all through Teams these days anyway. I take that back. It's all freaking texting.
And if you run an AV department on your campus and you have a hard time finding people to work for you, it's ironic that you have a whole workforce right in front of you that you could train up. And this is the long play of fulfilling your staff, but train those students up. And if you treat them well enough and you pay them well enough, they might just work for you later on in life.
So let's talk about that. So in this final chunk of
Or,
this,
Mark, let's go ahead and also talk about, real quick,
no,
what if you wanted to hire an existing
past
student
that.
full time?
yeah,
You've actually, we
yeah,
talked
we have
about
that.
that. You had that idea.
Yeah, we have students that are above and beyond, to be honest, that have surpassed and are working well outside the student credential. They have come in here and shocked us all, and we are working with our leadership to create more development opportunities. They're not full time; they're actually part time positions, but they're no longer student employees. And it allows them to take on a little bit more responsibility. It's developmental in a role that we say here, these are the things you're doing, and you've proven that you can do this, but gives us the ability to build on that and give them more responsibility. It's more hours they can work. It's increased pay over the student allotted pay, but it allows them and validates for them the work that they're doing. Right. And so it shows from a leadership perspective that we want to develop these students, because you're right. We need to nurture them. And if they are the person we want them to be for our organization, give them the opportunity to grow into that. But I want to talk about what are those skill sets? What are the things, short of saying they can do everything under the sun, because honestly, I believe they can. What are the types of things that when your students have kind of gone through your development, Larry, what types of skills do you think they're coming away with? Because I can say ours are level 2, level 3 Dante certified. They're patching cables, building cables, all that stuff. That's the easy stuff, right? I can have them kind of manage their own small teams and resources and kind of go out and do those things. I can almost have them do anything that I could ask of an FTE. In some ways, it's unique. So I just do you have examples of things that you think when your students leave your organization that are solid skill sets they'll take on to their professional careers?
It's really dependent on each student. Like I mentioned, the separate tiers of students that they progress through. Once they get to the third, which is a student analyst position, at that point, they are allowed to go find any procedure that we do or any focus that we do and just get certifications in it and start taking more of a hands-on. I've had students who program. I've had students who've kind of managed the student queue. So whenever cases come in, they are kind of the watchdog for that. I've had students who, he was a recording arts major, and he set up all my DSPs and just got to the point that after a room was done, I would send him in, he would ring it out, and my basic classroom sounded better than many of the ones I've seen installers kick out. I've had a student who was a business major. He managed our wireless display. At the time, we were using Mersive, so the whole dashboard. He kept everything up to date, kept everything configured correctly, just ran a dashboard for that.
That's a lot of work in itself.
Yeah, it's like
Wow.
whatever would be beneficial to them in the future, I'll find an opportunity for them to develop those skills.
And a lot of times it's helping them understand how to make sure they're using that. If and when they want to choose to, maybe they're going to stay in this field or vertical or whatever it may be, to give them self-credit for that knowledge,
Yeah.
right? And helping them with that too as they build out their resumes and things like that. Because oftentimes they won't give themselves credit for on the job. Like, they're, oh, I just did that. That was what I did. And it was like, well, no, you need to make sure you put that on your resume because it was this skill set and management skill set and time management and coordination. Like, make sure you're not selling yourself short because you were doing that work.
Yeah. And the resume, I know you've just kind of mentioned it briefly, but that's a big part of it. Like, I have looked over so many resumes since I've started this role of students because oftentimes the only job they've applied to is mine, and they really need help, like, defining the skills that they have in such a way that they are marketable.
I see something blinking.
Yeah, it says shut up.
So shut up, Justin.
I wasn't talking. I was shut up.
You were too loud.
I thought I was too soft.
All right, well, yeah, we do need to wrap here. We're trying to keep these short and tight for everybody. In and out. Any last thoughts on commencement, the topic of the month that we're not talking about?
Challenge yourself to trust your students to do more because they can. And they will.
The first job I had working at a university 20-some years ago, I was a sysadmin for a faculty development office, and our director said, take advantage of students. And then he thought about that and went, not that way.
Seems like that's not the right wording.
What he
for
meant
that.
was take advantage that there are these resources there called students, and every one of you at every school, you have 2, 3, 30, 50, 100,000 of them. Go find the right ones, give them the opportunity, let them grow.
You said it. Create opportunities because that's what they are. Anything is an opportunity for a student out there. And I'll be 100% honest. Our university loves to actually employ students. That's the one part. Like, when I need or want to bring on students, I've never been told no. You can't hire students. They're always like, how many you want? Go ahead, bring it. Is it an opportunity? Absolutely do it. So I think in the world where we're having a hard time finding competent employees full time for whatever their budget constraints are, I've seen a lot of universities willingly always bring in student. So create a better workforce by bringing those students in and giving them opportunities.
All righty. Well said. I'm going to roll out unless someone wants to say something else. Anything? Nope. Maybe. Yep.
Else.
Nope, no. Else. Done.
Else.
All right.
Done.
Well, that's it. So trying to keep it under 30 for that commute listening. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for putting up with yet another episode of AV SuperFriends On Topic. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients. AV SuperFriends On Topic is an independent production wholly owned and operated by AV SuperFriends, LLC. For the highest quality recording of all of our shows, visit avsuperfriends.com.